this is Karen from Black Swan Journals, and today I want to share with you how I've been decorating my self-care blue journal. I've been focusing on the color blue for this journal, and there I was just sharing with you a scrapbook paper that I've had and a page that I'm going to use from it, some paints that you might need. I'm going to focus on a lot of positive affirmations and quotes, so gathering those would be helpful. Some inks, some punches. I'm going to use some embossing paste. You can just use household spackle, a bone folder, a butter knife or a palette knife. I have a stencil here, some paper doilies, some greeting cards that I'm recycling, some die cuts that I made, but you don't have to have those. Just anything you've got around the house, or anything that's memorabilia, which is really what ephemera is. It's memory keeping and pieces of anything really that help you memory keep. That mean, pieces of things that mean something to you. And I love that. I've always been so fascinated with it. So this is my self-care journal that I've been working in. Here's some pages I've already decorated. And I do have videos on these, or at least a flip through of these so far. Nothing has been sewn in yet. I wanted to see how chunky I make this monkey before I sew it in. I'm definitely going to have to make a spine, cut open my cover and make a spine because she's loading up. Yes, sirree, Bob. And I always like to use book pages. I'm so sorry, my dogs are playing in the background. Can you hear them? They get a little aggressive sounding sometimes, but they truly are just having fun. So anyhow, I'm just flipping through the pages here and getting to the area that I want to decorate today. And that's the area I'm going to decorate. So what I'm going to do is remove a lot of the pages that I've already worked on, so that it's easier to work on the one I'm going to do today, and it's not so bulky. So off to the side these go. Oh yeah, there's the last page. I did this the other day. I do have a video on this. I can link that if anyone's interested. I can link it in the description box. So off to the side it goes. Yeah, she's chunky. She's already big. Oh, I love a big one. Okay, so here's the piece of scrap paper that I took out of that pad I showed you in the beginning. And I scored lines here with a scoreboard to make a large envelope. And that was the purpose of using that scrapbook paper today. But you could do this from a book page, from a large book page, a dictionary book page, really any size. You can make little teeny tiny envelopes, big envelopes, and all the way in between. So I just cut out the corners. If anyone needs to know how to do this, there's probably tons of videos on YouTube about this. But yeah, I'm just folding my edges and gluing it down. And here I always make a little notch because sometimes I get confused as to where to put the glue. So I just make a little mark and it guides me as to where to put my glue, and I'm always careful so I'm not gluing it down, and just showed you there with the bone folder. It's nice and free. And here's a stencil that I had in my stash, and a little piece of cardstock beneath that's like a frosted piece of cardstock. And I'm going to use this texture paste to make some three-dimensional lovely action going on. that later on we're going to paint with the gold paint that I showed you in the beginning of the video. You don't have to paint it at all. I think it looks beautiful white. It shows up better on camera with color for you, but it's lovely in person, just white on white. Or you could do this on dark cardstock and leave it white. You could use inks to dye and color it. You could use pretty much anything. You could probably even use like crayons or something like that to just rub over the top, or even crayons. So it's quite heavy and wet. The paper curled because of the wetness. But once it's dry, the paper straightens out. And the bulk of it adds some nice weight to the card. That product there takes about an hour and a half to dry. It's from Altenew. And here's a little piece of cardstock that was left over from the cover of this journal. And I'm making a little mini journal for this spread we're doing today. And I took some book pages and I'm making a couple of pockets here, gluing them down. Just inking around on the edges to kind of make them look older than they are. But they were already pretty golden around the edge because the paper is vintage. And then just giving some color to my doily, my lace paper doily. And giving it a little glue. I decide I'm going to frame the center with the doily. And then when you flip it over on the inside of the mini journal, you can fold the doily down and there's writing space. So there'll be writing space all on the inside of the journal as well as the doily on both sides. My dogs are getting rambunctious in the background. It's like almost time for their you-know-what. I can't say that word out loud yet. They still haven't adjusted to our time change. We had one recently and they still don't understand. I wouldn't expect them to understand. I personally don't understand the time. I know that it's for farmers, but my body doesn't know. So I have a little word here that says inspire, and I just want to glue this down. Seeing words that make me feel and think things I want to be and do really, really help me to be that person. So I feel like it's really great to look at words, read words, see things that make you be and feel like you want to. So that's part of what this spread is for me, affirmations. So here, this particular book page had words on it that were not positive. So always check that out. So I decided to just sort of doodle over it with a permanent marker to make those words not legible anymore. And then it just sort of transforms the energy of it, in my opinion. So you don't have to know how to draw to doodle. Just make little marks, make little circles, start making patterns. You'd be surprised how good you get after a while. I am not claiming what I just did there is good at all. But I really, when I start doodling over and over, it is amazing how good you get. From sheer practice, right? That's what it's all about, practice. So here I'm just inking some edges around a piece of digital scrap that I had in my stash. And I'm going to decorate the front of another piece for the journal, which is beneath, it's that light blue sort of, it's not herringbone. I don't know what design you'd call that. Sort of like almost like a garden gate pattern beneath there. That's another little scrap piece of paper I had in my stash that I'm making another little folded journal. My dogs, do they sound like gremlins? They make little growling noises when they play. um, and then just kind of tearing it, inking in between. I like to age my papers. So I'm going to glue this on top. And then I had this other little piece of book page, and I love what it says. It says a garden for wildlife. And on the piece of this digital that I'm gluing down, there's a deer, a buck. It's got antlers, so it's a buck. And I'm just sort of figuring out placement and composition, where I want to glue things down. And I decide that I want to have the paper run along behind the image, but the piece that I'm making is already really bulky inside, so I'm just trying to reduce the bulk and rip out a little bit of the paper. And in the end, I don't have it running behind because part of the words would have been taken, and I really loved what it says here. So I kept the left piece behind and the right piece in the front and glued them down. And it's another place to journal. I recently got a comment from someone saying that they weren't really sure what to do. They're new to junk journaling, and they weren't really sure what to do with parts of it, or self-care in particular, like how to use a self-care junk journal. And I had some envelopes and things that in that video that they commented on, and I was explaining how I was going to use the journal to go into nature and meditate and just get back my center. And it's nice to have the journal to make notes on any messages that come to me, also to grab little pieces of nature, moss, birch, whatever, feathers, and put them in the journal or in the envelopes. So I thought I would just mention here that in this video, if you're also new and you're attracted to this, but still at that stage of like, this is really beautiful and I really like this, but I don't understand it. What do you do with this? How do you use this? How is this practical? What do you do with it? Well, I can tell you my own personal answer to that. And for me, I could buy a blank journal from the bookstore and use it, write in it, but I find that I don't always pick it up and do so. I find that, I don't know, life gets in the way. I guess I'm not motivated or inspired to. And so making a beautiful journal with all of these bits and pieces and memorabilia, ephemera, is such a lovely, inspiring way for me personally, and I think a lot of others who do this. Sorry, music here, I'm dancing. It's just a way to make a journal that you can still journal in about your life. Also, you can keep a bullet journal, like a daily, this is what I need to do each day, grocery list, to-do list, inspiration list, dreams, whatever. But my point is that for me, the more decorative and visually appealing it is to me, or interactive it is, the more I'm likely to use it, take it with me every day, make it a part of my life, and write things down. And then I love that in years to come, I look back and I see memories that I may not have remembered. And so it's just a wonderful way to center yourself, document your life. There's so many purposes. If you need to get things out and let things go, you can always burn it, bury it afterward as a ritual. There's just so many purposes. But here I'm using some bubble wrap and some Liquitex cheap, just inexpensive acrylic paint. And this is a little plate I made at one of those pottery places where you get to paint and you leave it and they fire it up in their kiln and then you come back and you pick it up. I love those places. Next on my bucket list is to get my own kiln and pottery wheel and do it myself in my house. But anyway, stay on track. Stay on track, Karen. One thing at a time. So yeah, I'm just using the bubble wrap to introduce a little mixed media techniques here. Some other ways you can decorate your journals. And I set that aside to dry. And I want to use a little bit of the paint because I poured too much on my plate. And I decide to make what to me looks like little quarter moons or eighth or sliver moon. You know, I don't know what you'd call that. Like, and when I turn the card later, it looks like the old man in the moon. And that's what it looked like to me. But what's so funny is when I showed it to my husband and held it up to him, he thought that they looked like mini umbrellas that were sort of like shielding my quotes from rain. And I loved that. I thought that was a beautiful take. I loved it. And I love how different people look at things and they have different interpretations. So here, to me, they looked like little, sliver moons. And now I'm taking a paper doily and I'm just learning to draw. I've just been fooling around with watercolors, drawing, acrylics, oils, pretty much everything. Having a lot of fun learning. But I just drew a little dogwood there that's just, beginning here. Don't copy me for drawing lessons. But I will include it in my videos because I am learning and I am using it in my journals. And maybe you're interested in seeing my growth and my stages of growth in my drawing techniques and painting techniques. So here I'm just reinforcing the edge of this page and also covering up some plain white that was on the paper with some scrap pieces of book page. And this is a scrap piece of wallpaper that I had, seagrass wallpaper, topping it off with that for some interest and texture and dimension. And here I'm creating a pocket with some bits of lace. And this little memorabilia ephemera piece here that says garden rose. My daughter the other day we did a baby sprinkle, which is like a baby shower for her. And it was so great. It was so wonderful. But I used to own a flower shop. So of course I usually end up making flowers for events for people I know and family. So that little piece of paper that says garden rose was in the flowers that I had bought to make the arrangements. And so I kept it to remind me of the event. And later I can journal on it and maybe add a photo in this little mini journaling spot that I'm creating for my larger journal. And it already had a hole punched in it, the garden rose thing. And I just grabbed some old fabric that I had and ripped a piece and created a tag. And then over here is a little piece of paper tag that I had in my stash that was like that when I got it at the store, already in a tag shape. But I watercolored it, and I don't know how I lost the footage. I'm new to doing YouTube and making videos and editing and all of that. So somehow I lost the footage of doing the watercolor of that little tag, But it's really nothing. It's just you get the paper wet. You just, either mix up a color or have a ready-made color and just keep putting color down and moving it around, and don't cover up all the white, add more color in some spots, less in others, and it ends up giving you some nice depth. So here I'm just put for the top. I didn't want to thread that lace through the hole because it's thin paper. So I ended up just sort of like pinning it on and then putting that gorgeous mother of pearl abalone type shell button on. And a little quote of inspiration there with the word flowers. And there she is, all finished. A little mini journal within a journal. That's what junk journaling becomes. It's just, you end up using all your things and your little bits and your junk mail, and it just becomes so fun and so exciting, at least to me. And it creates just really exciting, interactive, visually pretty, visually grabbing and exciting places to jot down your life. So on the back, I just sort of stamped off, if you will, the word stamp, with the bubble wrap. I never dipped back into the paint, only the very first time. And then each marking was a stamp off, if you will. I never dipped back in. Just in case you wanted to see, like what it looks like each time. So here, I decided to use that little watercolor tag on this page here. And I've had this little die cut of a moose in my stash for years. And I've had that die of that shape moose for years. And I'm gonna put this is what we just made together, and I'm gonna put this in a little belly band here. I'm gonna staple that belly band on. And here's that piece we made earlier with the embossing paste. And it's been set aside to dry. Here's some stamps I did on another day. And I'm going to use one of them to rip off to cover up the red color here, because after all, it's a blue journal. And here's a greeting card that I got in a big pack in a thrift store. And, oh, there's my hair, sorry. Oh, I wanted to say, I love to save like amber or blue vitamin bottles and put my paper clips or bull clips or, whatever the heck, little bits in there. And I always keep the caps too, but I intend on decorating the cap, and I haven't done that yet. But I want to do something decorative to the cap and then screw the cap back on. So here's another affirmation, and it's a little Tim Holtz sort of like dimensional quote, and it says, "Focus on the good." And I'm just sort of ripping a little bit of the back off to reveal more of the cardboard. I just like that better for adhesion. And I put it right beneath my stitching because I don't want to cover up my sewing. I love to see the stitching. I love to see the threads. And then I want to clip this envelope on with that little clip that I took out of the vitamin jar. And this is a die cut that I made in another video. I don't know what the video was, but it was how to make a vintage mixed media card. But I didn't like how it came out, but I love it for here. So it's got dictionary page and a stamped image sort of set off so that both are revealed and you can see both. And then I die cut it because it was I bought it, it was a die and a stamp, like in the same package when I bought it. So here I found some bits in my stash that I want to make the moose a little bit more decorative, because I just can't stop. I gotta keep going. I have to doodad it up. I don't know if people overseas will know what I'm saying, overseas from the States, but gussy it up, doodad it up, adorn it. I just love to adorn. So, yep, little flower goes on that lace for the moose, little collar. Isn't he or she special now? It's got to be a he, right? Because of the antlers. So I glue it down, art glitter glue, and we're on to the next. So I had this poetry book of Emily Dickinson in my stash, and I love this page. I've had this book forever. I love this page that says part 1, life. And I love what it says on the back as well. And I want to use this to journal on and inspire me in my journal. It's got some nice prompts and quotes right on it for me. So here is my my paper that I clean I wipe my brush on. I try to clean my brush before, I try to get everything off my brush before I wash my brush. And some of those papers are the funnest papers to use. I never throw them away. They're great to use for so many things. You can die cut from them, you can draw on them, you can do what I'm doing here, just more literal approach, and I'm just going to use the paper to journal on, the other side, the cleaner side. So I decide I want to give this dogwood drawing some sprucing up. My drawing wasn't, it's coming along. But this really helped make it look pretty. I just put some Distress Oxides on to give it some color, and it really ties in with the page spread now too. And then I used once it dried, you can't do it when it's wet, you have to wait till it's completely dry. I used this permanent oil-based, like a Sharpie type pen, and I went over it again to darken up some of the lines. And it came out really nice in the end. And again, this is just a really inspiring way for me to journal on the back or even on the front. So I'm going to take the Emily Dickinson page and wrap it around my brush cleaning page. I tore the edges of that page and inked around it, and then it became a journaling page. But I'm going to wrap it in the Emily Dickinson page. And it didn't quite fit in that way, so then I just fold up one of the ends to make it a little more snug. And I thought it looked more interesting this way too. And that was just a happy accident, a nice surprise. And then now it slips in just fine. And I can certainly fit more papers in there in the future. So I'm going to attach this little moose tag on with this clip for now, because I'm really not sure where I want to use it right now in the journal. I may want to move it around. And for now, it's a great way to just put it there temporarily. And it creates a little pocket for my dogwood drawing. So now I'm going to attach a little scrap of ribbon that I had to make a belly band. And I'm using my little mini Tim Holtz stapler. And I wrap it, the ribbon was a little too long, but that's good. I wrap it around the edge to reinforce the page. always, if you're new, always check to see if what you want to keep in your belly band is going to fit before you glue it or sew it or staple. Made that mistake before, but that's how you learn. So yes, still moves nicely. So now I'm going to take some stamping that I did in the past and just rip it. And I think I inked the edges, yeah, and glue it down. And I'm two purposes. I wanted to cover up the red because it's a blue journal, and blue is very soothing to me, as is green. So for Self-Care Journal, I chose predominantly blue, but there's definitely some green in here as well. But so yeah, I wanted to cover up the red, and I made a little pocket. In doing so, I only glued a portion, so that's a pocket. And over here, I'm creating a pocket with this digital piece that I had. It's a William Morris wallpaper digital that I had as a scrap. And I glued it down to a book page to create a pocket. And I had a piece of acetate, and I wanted to create a pocket that was transparent because I really wanted to see that William Morris paper, because William Morris's designs, oh gosh, they're like eye candy for me. I just love looking at them. So I wanted the pocket to be transparent. So I chose a piece of acetate from packaging that I'm reusing. And I thought about sewing it down here. But in case you don't have a sewing machine, you can glue it down. But when you do end up seeing the glue through it. So you could glue it down and cover it up with scraps of paper like I'm doing here. You could also staple it down like I'm going to do. There's my hair, sorry, in my head. I was reaching for something. But yeah, so I used some scraps and of paper, and I tore them and inked them. And I'm going to frame the acetate, create a pocket, and cover up the staple marks at the same time. I guess I really do like to adorn. I did say that. But yeah, so, and then on the corner where my thumb is, I grabbed some little pieces of lace off of that doily, and I created like a little flower. And then some watercolor papers that I had. No, those were ink dyed papers that I had, that little scrap pieces that I put on top of the lace. And then I staple it down. And later I hide that staple with a little watercolor heart that I glue down, and then you don't see the staple. So here I just created a pocket now, see? And now you can put some pretty things in there and you can still see them. So here I have a lot of journaling space, and the inside says congratulations. So I think that's hysterical because who can't hear that or read that? So I love the lace top on this card, and I expose it. So it sticks out of the journal for more interest and eye candy. And then here's that little piece we made earlier, and I'm going to tuck that in here as well. There's my little umbrellas or moons, however you see them, or maybe you see something else. Whatever you see, please leave me a comment. Tell me what you see. It's so cool how we all see so many different things. So now that piece is dry that we stenciled earlier, and we're going to apply some gold paint. I end up using the smaller bottle, the Deco Arts, and I just apply it with a really cheap brush. It didn't do the best job. If you want to do a better job, use something, I'd say, that doesn't have such coarse wiry bristles. You could use a brayer. You could just go right over it with an ink pad. And here I'm learning how to blanket stitch. I've never done this before, but I love that blanket stitch. I've loved it my whole life, but I don't know how to do it. So I just looked it up on YouTube and just did a quick little messy blanket stitch for my first time. And all I'm doing here is just gluing down the knots on the top and the knot on the bottom. But I wanted to put down that piece of velvet ribbon for some interest. And here's a little bit of watercolor paper I've got in my stash that I ripped a little piece and put a pin through for a bow. But I did this because I want to reinforce the paper, the card, and that watercolor piece adds a lot of strength and reinforces it to poke that pin through. Here's a little moon face or whatever face on some sort of beautiful stone or gem or glass. I don't know what it is. It's just been in my stash, and it was in a mixed bag of gems that I got at a thrift store. And I threaded on the pin there with some ribbon, and it has a little key dangling that I had in my stash, and created a pretty little coordinating visual interest there. And now I have a lot of place to journal on the back. It's all blank, and I leave it that way. And here I use a little piece of ribbon I had in my stash to just cover up the bottom and make a pretty finishing touch. And I tuck it in. And now I'm using a little punch that I have in a mini heart shape. And I'm punching out some of that green watercolor paper. And I'm going to top that onto that staple I was talking about earlier. So I hope you've enjoyed these ways to decorate your journal pages. If you're new and you're attracted to journaling but you just don't know what to do, just thought I would show you some things. If you like it, please subscribe. Please leave some comments, and thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody that's been subscribing, anybody that has any interest. And here I'm just showing you some close-ups of what we did today together. I just love paper. I don't know what it is. I've always loved it. Just as a kid, I used to ride my bike to the stationery store and buy it with my allowance. I just have always loved it. And I just love what that says, Part 1, Life. How cool is that? How inspiring. So there she is, another page done. She'll definitely need a separate spine. She's definitely getting big. So another little mini journal within a journal we've made here. And I just love looking back at things from my past, especially from events such as a baby shower. So my daughter is having her second daughter. So my second grandchild and my second granddaughter. I only have the one daughter. She means everything to me. So here's a little close-up. I love that little heart. And so here's a close-up of that tag we made. I added a little bit of green onto the gold from the Tim Holtz ink, just to, I don't know, just to pop it out some more, give it some more dimension. And there's that new blanket stitch I just learned today. Close up of that face. I love that face, that blue face. And the transparent acetate pocket. What a great idea. What a great way to reuse packaging. Certainly not my idea. I've seen it for sure all over other creators' channels. and another little journal within a journal. Lots of fun interactive ways to make notes and document life. Little pocket here. I'll save anything, even my favorite chocolate bar wrapper. Not if it has food on it, but you know, if it's like the outside wrapper. Just to remember, oh, that's what I was eating 6 years ago. So thank you again. Bye.